Hello and welcome to the lesson on molecular shapes for Unit 4 of Mr. Allen's chemistry class at Davis High School. We've got a little program on the internet from the University of Colorado, and we're going to be discussing 5 shapes: linear, bent, trigonal planar, trigonal pyramid, and tetrahedral. So basically, you have to be able to look at a Lewis structure that we give you and tell us the shape of it. Now, if your particular molecule has 2 atoms, the only shape that it could be is linear. Whether you have a double bond, a single bond, a triple bond, and regardless of what you have on electrons you have around the atom, if you have 2 atoms, that's the only thing that matters. It's going to be a linear shaped molecule. And we have some examples of Lewis structures here, so if you saw something that looked like that, the nitrogen molecule or the hydrogen molecule, it's going to be linear. Now, if you have 3 molecules, then it could be either linear or it could be something else. Now, you have to understand the logic, and we're requiring you to understand the logic. These are electrons and these are electrons, and they are going to repel each other to the greatest amount they can. And the greatest amount that these electrons in these bonds and the electrons in this bond, the greatest amount that they can repel each other is 180 degrees away from each other. Can't go closer than 180 degrees on either side because they want to have the greatest amount on both sides. And so this is straight across. And again, it doesn't matter what's out here, what types of non-bonding electrons are on down here. It just matters how many outside atoms you have and what's on the central atom. So this is going to be linear if you have 2 outside atoms and no non-bonding lone electrons on the central atom. However, if you have electrons, and it's difficult to see on the video, but these are 2 electrons right here. If you have electrons on the central atom, they will bend or repel these electrons away. And so we're going to call this bent. Now, it doesn't matter if you have 1 pair or if you have 2 pair. This is still going to be a bent molecule. Now, when you see a Lewis structure, it's going to look like this. We draw it flat and we draw it straight across. This Lewis structure right here is linear, and this is bent. Well, what's the difference between the two? This has lone electrons on the central atom. 1 pair or 2 pair, it doesn't matter. This one has 2 pairs, but it doesn't matter if you have 1 pair or 2 pair. This is going to be bent. This doesn't have any electrons on the central atom, so it's going to be linear. It doesn't matter what kind of electrons you have on the outside atom. It just matters that you have 2 outside atoms. So if you have 2 outside atoms, it's either going to be bent or linear. It will be bent if you have electrons in the middle atom, and those electrons on the middle atom are what cause it to be bent. They repel these electrons in the bonds. The next molecule we're going to look at is if you have 3 outside atoms, and it doesn't matter if you have a double bond or a single bond. So if you have 3 outside atoms, it's going to be trigonal something. Tri for 3, trigonal something. Now, if you'll notice that all of these atoms are on the same plane, and they are as far away from each other as they can be. These bonds have repelled each other to the greatest degree possible. They would like to repel each other to 180 degrees, but then these bonds here would be too close. So they've repelled each other to about 120 degrees. You don't have to worry about the degrees, you just have to know that they're repelling each other. So this is trigonal, and because they're all on the same plane, we're going to call it trigonal planar. Now, if we introduce electrons to the middle, you have to recognize what happens. Those electrons in the middle are going to bend these bonds away, making it form sort of like a pyramid. these atoms are no longer on the same plane. If you rotate it, you see they're not flat as they are right here. Electrons in the middle bend these bonds down and away. And so if you see a Lewis structure, you're going to see something that looks like this right here. It may be written like this, but it'll most probably look like that. And again, you could have some outside electrons on this outer atom. That doesn't change anything. The main thing is that it has 3 electrons around the middle. If, however, you have lone electrons on the central atom, it's going to bend the bonds down and form a pyramid. So this is trigonal planar. 3 electrons, no electrons in the middle, trigonal pyramid, 3 atoms. 3 atoms on the outside and lone electrons in the middle. The fourth one is going to be tetrahedral. Tetra is the prefix we use in science for 4. It means 4 outside atoms. That one's kind of easy to memorize. Again, if you put a 4th atom on that middle atom, another bond, it's going to repel those down. But since it has 4 outside atoms, we know that it's tetra. So, linear, linear, bent, because the electrons in the middle are going to push that down. Trigonal planar, because we don't have any electrons in the middle, and we have 3 outside atoms, and all 4 atoms are on the same plane. Trigonal pyramid, because we have electrons in the middle. And tetrahedral, because we have 4 atoms on the outside.